You are listening to the Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys podcast. Sam Lubman here with Joe the Butcher Boy Shasky, coming at you every week with the best Giants content out there. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing, and sharing. Tell everybody about this podcast, as we want to have you on board with every episode. So, Shasky, we're talking about kind of positives and kind of maybe the Giants can turn things around here. And so I feel let's go in the complete opposite direction of what we were just talking about. And that is, maybe it's time the Giants maybe need to adjust their message a bit. Maybe they need to adjust the overall strategy a little bit. And by that, I mean, at what point should the Giants just say, you know what, let's punt on competing. Let's just go full send on a youth movement, trade everything that isn't, already bolted down. And then let's just bring up the farm and see what happens. Is there a moment you think this season where the Giants might just look themselves in the mirror and say exactly that to themselves?
Well, I think an argument can be made that they would do it now, but I think there's also another side of that coin where you'd say, you got to be realistic here. You got to play a couple of months. I mean, at least get me to June. Can I get to Memorial Day?
Yeah.
But I do want them to be on the open market selling all these pieces, whatever pieces that they can get rid of, and be one of the first to set the market. Don't wait till the end. Nobody wants your used tires. All right. Casey Schmidt, I've been tracking what he's been doing in AAA. I don't think he's ready yet. Like, the bat hasn't come along, but that doesn't mean I don't want to see him at the big league level.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this whole argument on, the AAA is a hitter's league, he's got to get X amount of at bats. Man, have you watched this big league club? Like, come on. They just need a jolt right now. They really do. We're seeing a little bit of Elliot Ramos. I don't think he's the greatest. I'm not even sure he's a big leaguer, but at least we're seeing him. At least I'm getting an opportunity to make a conclusion one way or the other. And to that point, I appreciate it. All of these 33, 34, 35-year-olds, like Darren Ruff, they reacquired Darren Ruff. What's that doing for them? They acquired Matt Beatty. He's back down in AAA. They brought him up and down like 5 times already. What's that doing for them? Other than clogging up a potential opportunity for someone else. Like,
exactly.
I'm already here.
Yeah, I would rather, kind of see what we have out of a Elliot Ramos than wasting time with a Matt Beatty, or, let's see what Casey Schmidt can do against left-handed hitters. I don't need to see Darren Ruff again. Like, I don't need to watch this episode again. It's just, it does nothing for me. And it's frustrating for the fans. And I think when you I think it's almost like a double-edged sword in a sense, maybe, where, because again, in order to bring some of these guys up, you do need to get rid of some guys. I think there's 7 or 8 of the top highest paid players on this team can leave after this season. Most notably guys like Michael Conforto and Jock Peterson. I believe Sean Manaea is one of those guys as well. These are guys who, if they do well, they're not going to help you next year. But if they do well, it might mean that the Giants are doing well. So maybe they kind of are inclined to roll with those guys a little bit. Like, there's almost like a very fine middle point the Giants need to hit, where they need certain guys to play well enough to get some sort of trade value, but not so well that they compel the Giants to be like, well, hey, I think we might be in this thing. I'm not going to say they're going to be buyers at the trade deadline or anything like that, because I don't think the Giants can really afford to be buyers right now. But if if another trade deadline goes by and it's just like, we didn't want to make a deal, I'm not on board with that plan.
Isn't it also more of an indication of how far they've sunken in terms of the roster's not that desirable? Like, it's just not. I mean, it's just not. Like, right now, who's the guy that people are tripping over themselves to have at the deadline?
I mean, right now, nobody.
If
I look at guys who maybe could develop into that, I think Michael Conforto right now, if I had to pick a guy on this roster.
But he's got multiple years. Oh, Conforto's not the free agent. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think he's got an option for next
year.
Conforto
is nice.
Yeah, so I think Conforto is a guy who, if he can kind of keep going on this trajectory that he started off here, maybe he has some trade value. Jock Peterson, if he can have, a similar year like he had the first 2 months of last year and not bottom out starting in May for, unknown reasons. He could be a guy who the Giants could maybe move the deadline. If they can get Sean Manaea to have some good starts in June and July, maybe you get something for him.
We're grasping.
We are. It does feel like we are grasping at this point. But the point is so much. I don't really care so much what the return for these guys is. The point is, I just want to get them off the roster, because then that forces the Giants to call guys up from the minor leagues.
I'm with you there.
Let's get Grant McCray up here. Let's get Von Brown up here. let's see what they can do.
It almost feels like when they acquired Blake Sabol with the Rule 5 thing, because of the way the rules are, if you do not play him for the whole year at the major league level, he goes back to his original team. And it's forced their hand to at least see if he's any good. And I'm intrigued. I don't even know if he's good or not. I know he's not great defensively, but he can hit a little, you know? And I'm like, okay, I'm getting a good look at him. I almost feel like I wish all of their young players were out of options so I could, at minimum, get an opportunity to see them. They live for the option. They live for it. Like Matt Beatty was acquired and immediately optioned twice.
And it's just,
he's 30.
Yeah, and the nickel and diming of the roster every day is just not appealing. And to say what you say, like, I wish these guys didn't have options, so we have to see them. The thing about Blake Sabol is if he does hit well this year, he has to come back next year.
I know.
Like guys like Michael Conforto, Jock Peterson, if they hit well, they're not going to be back next year.
No.
But that's the guy who's like, let's see guys who, if they do play well in 2023 for the Giants, that means they're also going to play well for the 2024 and the 2025 Giants. That's what I would like to see out of, young guys like that. Another reason why I think, youth movement might be better off for the Giants is I think it might be better for Kapler and Farhan. They're under a lot of heat right now. They say all the right things, I think, in the offseason. We want to compete. The expectation is the playoffs. And I agree. The expectation is the playoffs. The expectation is competing. But your roster says the exact opposite of that. Your roster says we're just trying to get through the day and whatever happens, happens. And when, the words are saying one thing and the actions are saying something completely different, that's where you get a situation where fans are saying, well, I don't like what we're seeing out of Giants baseball. These guys need to go. I feel that if Farhan and Kapler just come out and say, you know what, we need to play our younger players. We want to see what they have here. And there's probably going to be some losses and growing pains that come with that. I think Giants fans are smart enough to say, well, you know what? We'll roll with that because, you're being honest about what we're seeing right now. And I think that whatever the hot seat is on Gabe Kapler and Farhan Zaidi is right now, that admission, I think, would take a lot of the heat off of that.
Well, let's look at someone like David VR. He's struggling right now. Like, he just is. Like, there's no other way around it. Is anybody losing their mind because he's struggling?
No.
And if anything, like, he's one of the lone bright spots, and he hasn't had a lot of contributions in the last week. Like, he really hasn't. And yet most people are like, good, I want to see him in the lineup every single day. Right. So
exactly.
This thing that like Giants fans won't show up if your team isn't 100% competitive at all times. Like, I just don't subscribe to that.
No. And I mean, you want to see them win. Like, for me, the idea of like a bottoming out or getting a 100 loss season sounds horrific to me. The Giants have only lost 100 games once in their history.
Isn't that horrific?
I mean, there's a part of me that's like, they've only had one 100 loss season. I don't want to see another one, but I don't think this team would be that bad.
Yeah, but once you're bad, it doesn't matter. Like, to me, like, once you're bad, like, who cares? Like, does anyone remember what the Astros did before they ended up going to the playoffs? Not really. Not really.
No, and I'm not saying that that's what it would be. I'm not saying the Giants are going to, tank for the next 3-4 years because, and first off, when it comes to losing like that, you don't do it for a draft pick. It's not about the draft lottery.
I just want to see young guys develop at the big league level.
Yeah, no, I mean, the baseball draft is such a crapshoot. You don't need to shoot for that. Let's just see what these guys can do, see what these guys can bring to the table, show us a direction. After the big thing, it's what is the direction of the Giants? And I think the Giants could really show that with a simple admission, a simple bit of, honesty and looking in the mirror and being like, where are we right now? Like, fans will accept that. If fans will accept a little bit of losing now, if it means a chance to get more winning later. Like, basically, it comes at the end of the day. Would you rather watch this team currently constructed stumble to 83 wins and maybe a playoff appearance? Or would you just be like, you know what? Call up the farm. We're going to lose 95 games.
Exactly.
But we're going to see what guys do. That's the choice here. And between those two, I mean, it's just you sometimes you have to take the step backwards in order to take the 2 steps forward. And it seems like the Giants are very reluctant to do that.
Absolutely they are. And to me, that's their own hubris and them not understanding their own fan base, right? Yeah. Like, I think the fan base is willing to be patient, especially given the news that the A's are moving out of the market. There's no other choice.
Yeah, and we can talk about that in a minute. I do want to say, though,